These 3 communication mistakes will make leaders dismiss your ideas and stop listening to you. Are you making these mistakes? Picture this. You have spent weeks developing a brilliant idea and you've got an opportunity to go into your leaders and present it to them. You are excited, you are prepped, you are ready to go, but during your presentation, something goes wrong. The leaders seem kind of distracted. They're asking questions that seem to miss the point. One of them is staring out of the window. And at the end of your presentation, your idea gets dismissed with the, "We'll circle back to this later," which of course means we'll never talk about this again. What went wrong? I'm Joanna. I'm a communications consultant and I am here to help you with communication in the workplace. Over more than 15 years of working in communications, I see 3 key mistakes happen over and over again when people are trying to communicate with their leaders. These 3 mistakes are: number 1, presenting to impress; number 2, failing to connect to priorities; and number 3, overwhelming with details. So let's get into it. Let's talk about all 3 of these and see how you can avoid making these mistakes. Let's start with mistake number 1, presenting to impress. People can tell when you are presenting to impress rather than presenting with a clear objective in mind. For example, let's say you're back in front of that leadership team and you are presenting your idea and you decide, oh, I really want to impress them. So I'm going to use lots of complicated jargon. I'm going to use all the industry terminology. I'm going to get loads and loads of very impressive looking slides. And you're really determined to show them how much you know. You really want to impress them. And yet, despite all of this, by the end of your presentation, the leaders kind of are underwhelmed and maybe not that interested. This is because you fell into the trap of trying to sound smart and trying to impress them rather than trying to achieve a specific objective with your communication. And you've kind of lost that clarity of purpose. Like, what is the point of you being there? So if you want to avoid making this mistake, just set aside trying to impress people and focus instead on getting really, really clear on what is my communications objective. Now, setting a communications objective sounds like something very complicated and difficult. It isn't. All you need to do to identify your objective is ask yourself one question. And the question is, what am I trying to achieve with this communication? Whether that's a presentation or sending an email or even a conversation, what am I trying to achieve by the end of this? Are you trying to get your leaders to feel differently about your idea? For example, maybe you're trying to get them to feel really excited about it. Maybe that's your objective. Or maybe you want to go a step further. Maybe you want them to do something. Maybe you want to secure budget approval, or you want them to do something differently as a result of your communication. That's your objective. Maybe, for example, when you're going into that leadership meeting, your objective is, I want to get them to sign off on this idea so that I can start next week. Once you're clear about your objective, then you can work backwards from there and plan your entire communication, your entire presentation around your objective. This is really helpful because it helps you identify what information you need to include and what information you can leave out, what is not going to help you achieve that objective. So here's how you can avoid making this mistake of just trying to impress people. You need to have a clear objective. And to do that, you just ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve with this communication? Then you can apply the do I need it test. So all of the information you have prepared with your objective in mind, look at that information and think, do I need it? Is this going to help me achieve that objective? And then take it a step further. What's really helpful is to bring your objective into your communication, into your presentation, and use it right at the start. So you're going to open your presentation with your clear objective and say, we're here today so I can get your approval on X. Or by the end of this discussion, I'm hoping to get your agreement on Y. So you're leading with that objective statement. You're getting everybody very clear on what's the purpose, what are you doing here. I think you'll find that when you communicate with a very clear objective in mind, you will find that you naturally stop just trying to impress people because you're very, very focused on what you're trying to achieve. So that's mistake number 1. I see this all the time. Mistake number 1 is trying to impress people with your communication rather than having a clear objective. Mistake number 2 is failing to connect to priorities. Leaders will stop listening to you if you do not connect your idea to the business priorities or the things they care about the most. For example, something I see a lot is somebody might come into a leadership meeting and they have an idea about their own team, about their own department. They're super excited about it. It's a really good idea. They have all this data and evidence, but they don't make the leap between what does it mean for their team versus what does it mean for the company. So like, why should the leaders care? People sometimes kind of forget to connect it to the leaders and they talk about, well, I'm really excited about this and my team is going to do X, Y, Z and I. So think instead of focusing on yourself, think about your leaders. What are their priorities? What do they care about the most? To stop making this mistake, what you want to do is deliberately connect your idea to company priorities and align your idea to that. In this way, you're going to create mutual value. So it's valuable for you and your team. It's also valuable to the leaders. You're giving them a reason to listen to you. So if you want to do this, it's actually quite simple. Just ask yourself these questions. First of all, what do my leaders care about the most? What are their top priorities? Your company probably has an overall business strategy that has a number of priorities set out. That is what your leaders care about the most. It might be things like revenue, it might be customer satisfaction, it might be reducing customer churn, it could be about efficiency or productivity. But that first step, you need to understand what do your leaders care about. That's step one. And then building on from that, the next step is, how does my idea that I want to communicate about, how does that connect to that bigger picture, to those business priorities? In other words, why should your leaders care? Is your idea going to make the company more efficient if efficiency is important to the company? Is your idea going to generate the company more money or reduce customer churn? If you approach communication like this and start with your audience in mind, so your audience here is your leaders, what do they care about? They will pay attention, they will start listening to you because you are creating value for them. And also, if you do this, it will drastically improve the chances of you getting the go-ahead to do the projects that you want, because you've proven that this is not just important for you or for your team, but also for the company at large. So avoid making this key mistake. Find out what your leaders' priorities are and then frame your communication around those priorities. You can also mirror the language that they use when they talk about those priorities. What are the specific words or phrases or terms that your leaders talk about when they are communicating about these priorities? Mirror that language back to them. That's how you avoid mistake number 2, which is failing to connect to priorities. And mistake number 3, easy for any of us to make this one. Mistake number 3 is overwhelming with details. I've definitely done this. I see this happen all the time. Let's say we've got a guy called Stephen, and he's got a great idea and he's been given a 30-minute slot in front of his leaders at their next leadership meeting, and he has that 30 minutes to go in and present his idea and ideally get their approval to go ahead with it. Now, he's been working on this idea for about 6 months and he knows every detail about it. He knows it up and down, backwards and forwards. And he wants to make sure that in this 30 minutes, he conveys every single bit of information to the leaders about his project. His slides are packed with data and graphs and charts and multiple scenarios and all this different type of analysis and a project roadmap and a timeline and every single bit of detail about this project. Because Stephen thinks that showing them all the bits of information is going to get them to say yes. This is a huge mistake. All you're going to do here is drown your leaders in details and data rather than focus on what do they need to know and what do they care about the most. And here's what I want you to know. Leaders don't need to know all the information. They don't care about all the minute details. They just need to know what matters most, why this matters to the business. So that's the bit about linking to priorities. And what do you need from them to make this happen? The most influential communicators I see don't gather all the information in the world and present it in a communication. No, instead they think carefully about their target audience and they curate that information into meaningful insights that will resonate with that audience. This is a really good tip to help people listen to you when you can strip out all the extra information. You can use that test we talked about earlier, the do I need it test, but with your audience in mind. Do they need this information to make a decision about the clear objective that you have already set? Do you see how they all link together? Now that you know these 3 critical mistakes, why don't you give yourself a little bit of a rating on how you're doing on each? I like to use a very simple diagnostic tool for stuff like this, just a traffic light system. So for each of those 3 mistakes, why don't you give yourself red, amber or green? Red means actually you're not great in this area, you have an awful lot of work to do Amber is you're not great, you're not terrible either. And then green is you're nailing this, like don't worry about it, just keep going. So if we think about the first one, you want to give yourself a traffic light rating for this. First one is all about setting clear objectives. Do you communicate with a clear objective in mind, or are you sometimes focused a little bit more on trying to impress your audience and using fancy language? So you can give yourself a green, amber or red. The second was all about connecting to priorities. When you are communicating with your leaders, do you frame your communication around their priorities, or do you mostly focus on you and your own team? Again, you can give yourself a green, amber or red. And then the third one was all about curating key insights rather than overwhelming with details. So where do you sit on this? Do you go into a presentation and bombard them with every piece of information that you have? Or do you take the time beforehand, think about that audience, think about what they need to know and base your communication around that? Again, give yourself a green, amber or red. If you find that you're giving yourself red or amber, I don't want you to feel embarrassed about that. You've actually done a brilliant thing there because you've identified a place for you to grow and to learn and to improve, and that's amazing. Ask yourself these questions again in a year's time and let's see if you're progressing from, say, red up to amber or amber up to green. If you would like, you can leave a comment and tell me how you rate yourself, and also tell me one action that you're going to take on the back of this video to improve in one of the areas where maybe you're not doing such a great job right now. I'm here to help. Let me know how I can support you. If this is useful, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video.